Good evening. Welcome to the February 10th, 2016 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. We'll start with the roll call of the members. All current members are present. I would ask that everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, we will move along to introduction of staff.
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Cody Martin, the Attorney for the Planning Commission.
Ricky Compton, Planning and Development Director.
Rhonda Bro, Engineering.
Joey Turo, Engineering.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 on the agenda is the chairman's comments. The chair has no comments this evening. Moving on to item 6, there's no general business. Item number 7, approval or denial of the minutes of the January 13th, 2006 Planning Commission minutes.
So moved.
Movement by Mr. Callender, second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Moving on to the number 8, the consent agenda. There are no items on the consent agenda. Number 9, public hearing to approve or deny the following partitions. 9A, the Carol Clark Senior Property, lots 5A1, A1, and 5A1, A2. Staff comments on that.
They're requesting a variance for the private access servitude to 20 feet. They did not present a hardship, so we recommend that the variance request be denied and the family partition be approved, with the existing 20-foot private servitude of passage being increased to the required 30 feet.
Is anybody here on behalf of the Carol Clark Senior Property?
Good evening. My name is David Fazekas. I'm with Benchmark Group, LLC, and I also live on the property at 13025 Bluff Road. I bought this property almost 8 years ago and just tired of cutting all the grass. So my daughter and my son-in-law have been looking for a piece of property to build on, and I'd like to subdivide an acre off for them to build on. I'm asking for the variance of the servitude of passage because Mr. Clark subdivided the property 10 years ago, and he just got 20 feet, but there's also a 12-foot servitude adjacent to it, so I'm asking for a waiver of the subdivision. My daughter and son-in-law are here if you have any questions for them. My daughter's a teacher here in Ascension Parish, teaches second grade at Central Elementary School, and the children all live here in Ascension Parish. I'm asking for an approval of the family petition, please.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions?
No, other than them.
What's the reason for not granting or not recommending the variance on the servitude?
Before we changed the rules, we used to have a variation of private access servitudes that started with 20 feet to serve one lot, and it went all the way up to 50 feet to serve up to, I don't know, 6, 9, whatever the number was. When we went through the process of revising all of the rules, we just established that 30 feet was the minimum width that we would want for an access servitude. There's no hardship. There's no great trees that we're saving. There's no house in the way. They just don't want to do it.
Excuse me. If you notice on the plat also, my adjacent property owner has a 30-foot servitude of passage that goes partially through the property, and that's what we use now for a turnaround or so forth. And if you'd like to hear from him, he's also here.
Well, I'm seeing a 30-foot servitude. Is there not?
No.
Why am I not?
We just have a 20-foot servitude. The adjacent piece of property has a 30-foot servitude, which is adjacent to ours.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this matter. Has anybody signed up to speak on this? Nobody signed up to speak. We'll close public hearing. Any further comments or questions from the commissioners?
I have a question, yes. The statute 174026, Family Petition, Section D2, is verbatim quote, requiring the 30 foot. Is there a reason
Well, I'll be happy to dedicate 30 feet, but I would have to infringe on a 12-foot servitude of, for utilities. That's the only reason why I can't do it, is because the utilities are adjacent to the 20 feet now.
Do y'all just not have 30 feet?
Well,
free
we
and
have
clear of that
30 feet,
property, but it includes that 12 feet.
it includes the 12 feet.
And I don't think you can go back and override. Ricky, you can't rededicate a servitude that simple, can you? I mean, it's dedicated as a 12-foot utility
Is
servitude.
there any,
You can't.
is there anything in the 12-foot utility servitude?
Yeah, we have water and gas and so forth in it. We'd have to move all of that.
So that leaves us with a 20-foot servitude.
I mean,
Basically, what I'm saying is he doesn't have the 30-foot because we can't include that 12.
that to me presents the hardship, is that there are existing utilities within that 12-foot servitude, therefore you can't make it 30 without encroaching into it.
Right. You'd have to get a letter of no objection from a water company, and it probably wouldn't give it. So we'd be left with a 20-foot servitude that would be free and clear outside of the utility servitude. There's no more that you could give because you don't have any more access to that property
That's
in the back, correct? That kind of sounds like a hardship to me.
I would agree.
You know?
All right, do we have a motion on this?
Yeah, I'm gonna move for approval. Well, before I make this motion, what about the okay, I thought it had to be owner of Lot 1B signing the plat. So we're gonna have to make this contingent upon the owner of Lot 1B signing the plat? Is that,
Not for this item.
not at all? Once the hardship is placed or agreed upon?
Which lot is 1B?
I guess Terry Moss is the one that staff recommendations?
You're looking at the wrong one.
Oh, I am looking at the wrong one.
This is Carol Clark Senior Property.
Very first one.
Oh, well, I didn't have mine in order. That's why I'm confused with this 30-foot. Okay, there we go. Okay, that explains my confusion on not seeing 30 foot, and I'm wondering why we're having problems with that. I'm sorry, I apologize for
okay.
that.
Staff, again, considering, as the gentleman just explained, they don't have 30 feet.
Right,
Is there, you still maintain that disposition that,
No.
right,
I would maintain that if there's utilities within that utility servitude, they do not have the ability to get to a 30-foot
Correct.
servitude, which is a hardship.
yes?
right.
That evidence isn't in this packet, and I didn't do this review. I apologize. Ben's out sick, so
Okay.
I'm looking at it the 11th hour, and what it says is there's no hardship.
Same here, yeah. Okay, well, I mean,
All right, do we have a motion?
yeah, I'd like to move for approval and grant the hardship on the 20-foot servitude.
We have a motion to approve the petition and grant the variance on the
And second.
20-foot servitude by, in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Unanimous. Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9B is the Janet Arnold property, lots 1A1 and 1A2. Is anybody here to speak on behalf of the Janet Arnold property?
All right, how are y'all? I'm Hunter Pickard. I'm with Alvin Fairburn Associates. And what we have is a re-subdivision on lots 1A. We made, we just split we split it in half and put the servitude in here, and that's what we're here to approve.
Staff comments on this?
So staff recommends approval contingent upon the owner of Lot 1B signing the plat to allow the servitude to be placed on his property. I'd also like to add that we'd want a pre-deal agreement to be completed and filed with the clerk of court that identifies that Lot 1B has this additional servitude, because other than that, you would never know it if you were doing research for Lot 1B that existed.
That's your contingency?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any issues
Sounds
with that?
easy enough.
And these are also, just to add that, these are all family members, brothers and sisters.
I'm Terry, by the way.
Oh, how you doing?
Okay.
Okay,
I just
So
want
you're
to
the
make sure
owner of
we
Lot
all on the
1B.
same page here.
Okay.
now
I didn't quite understand what he was referring to.
So if we require you to sign this plat, when your piece of property goes up for sale at some point in the future,
Okay.
there's going to be no record that exists on your property.
That would exist.
they're putting a 12-foot utility servitude on your property.
Okay. Another 12 feet besides all of this?
Yes, sir. That's just access.
Okay. Well, good luck with that, because that's a ditch right there. That's great.
Yeah.
You wanna put
And they can make
servitude
that
in a
work.
ditch, that's fine, but it's not gonna go past. This is what, right now? This right here is what, 40 feet?
Looks like 30.
That's what Ben
Okay,
recommended
this
right
is
here.
30,
Mhm.
and then another 12.
Correct.
So that'll be a right of way for the parish if they need to bring
It's
utilities.
it's
to the back.
servitude for the back lots to get energy, to get gas, to get water.
Right. They can put it in the bottom of a ditch.
Tell me where to sign.
All right, we'll open a public hearing on this. Anybody sign in to speak on this?
Tell you what, you can actually sign this and save you a trip.
Be sweet.
Okay.
My sister's supposed to be coming.
That being said, we'll close the public hearing. Any further comments by the commissioners? Have a motion,
Move to approve,
subject to the contingency?
subject to the contingency.
Mr.
That's
Callen,
correct.
I'll
Mr. Callen
second.
moves to approve, second by Mr. Ori. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. All right, item number 9C, the Janet Jones Schexnayder property, lots number 1B-4A-2-A and 1B-4A-2-B. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is George McCallum with Quality Engineering, and we're asking for a family partition, tract 1B4A2, cutting off 1 acre. Miss Jennifer is going to give that piece of property to her mother.
Staff comments?
So today, Crown Road is an existing 60-foot private servitude of passage, and to get to the new lot 1B4A2B is going to require another 30-foot private servitude of passage off of that, which is specifically prohibited in the code. It says, no private access servitude may be created that intersects with an existing private access servitude.
And we're asking for a variance on that tonight.
We had run into this before. Seems like on that Schexnayder property out, I want to say with the Stafford family, with a private servitude, trying to give access off a private servitude to another.
That was denied, yes.
Was that what kind of the same?
They were trying to do the same thing, yes.
So how do they go about getting access to their property?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, there's,
But we have to have something in place.
There's already a 30-foot servitude intersecting the existing Crown Road servitude now. We're just extending it to put this lot in.
Which contradicts the code.
Now, with the
Code doesn't have an-
issue on the Schexnayder property that we had several months ago, that was an issue where they had previously subdivided the property to make, they'd done a simple division, correct?
yeah, I mean, they're definitely not apples and apples that you're comparing here. This was a situation where they were trying to do something and they were doing it in a little bit of a interesting way. This situation exists that, Crown Road, I don't even know how long it's been in existence, but Crown Road comes off of an existing public road, and at this point in where it's at, I mean, you're probably a couple thousand feet off of the public road?
No, sir, it's, I'd say not more than about 300. It goes across to the left off the page, and it tapers in to Kramer.
Yeah. But Ricky, without a variance granted to them, we do not have another mechanism in place in the code. I mean, the code specifically states that you cannot come off a private servitude with another private servitude, but we don't have any other mechanism in place to give a person access to their property, right?
I mean, that, the speculation would then at that point be whether or not the council wants property to be subdivided repeatedly off of private roads. Are you going to create an interconnected network of private streets? Because at what point does it end? So if the council decides to change the law to allow intersecting private access servitudes, then that's their will. They can do that. But right now, we're left with a set of circumstances that I would say this piece of property was not suitable to be subdivided because it's already on a private access servitude.
So right now, tract 1B4A, the Adele Schexnayder, the mother that's in the front, she has access on that 30-foot private servitude, correct? via maybe a driveway? I
Correct.
think that's what I saw. It was just a driveway.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying, this situation, it already exists that the servitudes intersect.
Right.
And it's just, we're trying to get this in for the mother to have a lot right there.
Should be on the front lot.
She'll be on the second lot.
Yeah, the 1B, well, the one in bold, the little small one, the 1 acre.
Right, right. Is there any development on 1A, 4A, 2B, the one in the back, the farther back lot?
That's just the house where Miss Jennifer's, she's got one house on it.
Access by driveway.
Yes.
So we would just need to step outside of the code to decide whether or not we would want to grant a variance. Allow the family point.
Well, let's open a public hearing on this. We'll open a public hearing. Is anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, Miss Jennifer.
Yeah.
You do?
You can come forward, ma'am.
Jennifer Scheck-Snyder.
I know y'all have issues if this is gonna be the last lot. I only have one sister, and all we really want is just to live with our family together, my sister in between my mother and myself. So, as far as our land being divided and keep being divided, that is not our intention. If we sign a document stating that we would not divide, we would do that also. Yes, the rest of it is farmland, which we have agriculture on.
Okay.
Question, staff. Can we grant the family petition denying the variance?
No.
It would have to have a variance included?
I mean, otherwise, lot 1B, 4A, 2B has no access.
No public access, right?
No access.
But that's already developed.
Generally speaking, we are never worried about what they want to do. It's when they're gone and the next person comes. And if we've granted a lot with no access.
No, I get that, but 1A, 1B, 4A, 2B is the lot that's already developed. There's already a house on that lot.
Correct.
And so a lot in front of that, closer to the public right-of-way, is what they want to subdivide off through this family partition to build another house there, but we can't do it because because we'd have to add a 30-foot servitude to the already private servitude that's there.
Correct.
Trying to follow the logic of that, and I'm not having a lot of success.
The logic to what? As to why we would or would not?
I'm just trying to, what I don't, I mean, they want to, they're putting something in front of what's already developed there. So there's already access to the back of the lot.
Right.
So
If you take the piece of property as one, there's already access going back to the back.
correct.
To
So
where the development is
that's
there.
kinda where I am.
the 60-foot servitude of access that was placed on tract 1B, 4A, I guess it's 2, when it was a parent tract, we felt that 60-foot was placed in error because it didn't serve any purpose because that lot already had frontage on Crown Road. So the servitude didn't serve a purpose because the lot had frontage on Crown Road. So by reducing the width of it to 30 feet to add another lot, that's when you're complicating the matter.
So it already exists as a 60-foot servitude. Why not leave it at 60 foot and just start the 30-foot servitude?
Then we're going to have 3 private servitudes of access on that piece of property? Because that's what we're talking about. Crown Road, the 60, and now a 30.
But the 60 already exists,
It exists, but it serves no purpose.
except access to the back of something that's not subdivided right
It
now.
ends at tract 1B, 4A, 2A.
Okay. I don't know, we talk about the spirit of a family partition, and I mean, this just seems like, this seems to be in what I would personally define as the spirit of a family partition. I see that it's clear, you know, stated that no more than one private access off another private access, but this seems like the only way that they'd be able to get this and subdivide this piece of property off the back of it.
Any further comments from the commissioners?
What would be viable, acceptable, that does not violate the code? To grant the petition, what can we do? What would be a viable alternative?
None of the answers are fiscally possible.
Except the variance.
Accept the variance.
Yes.
Except the variance, that's it. Okay, that's fine.
Can we grant a variance on that, Cody?
You guys got to make that determination. You want me to read the requirements of granting a variance to you guys again?
That'd be good.
That would be great.
All right, standards for variances. No variance in the strict application of provisions of this ordinance shall be granted by the commission unless it finds that the following requirements and standards are satisfied. Number one, the granting of the variance shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations imposed by this ordinance for the district in which it is located and shall not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public welfare. Number two, the granting of the variance will not permit the establishment of any use which is not permitted in the district. Number three, there must be a showing of unique circumstances. Number four, there must be a showing of an unnecessary hardship. Number five, there must be a showing that a variance is necessary for the reasonable use of land or building and that the variance is granted by the board is the minimum variance that will accomplish this purpose. Number six, there must be a showing that the proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light or air to adjacent properties, substantially increase the congestion in public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the adjacent neighborhoods. Part C says there must be a showing that the granting of the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other land structures or buildings in the same district. The commission may prescribe any safeguards that it deems necessary to secure substantially that objective of the regulations or provisions to which the variance applies. So those are the 6 parameters in which you guys have to use to decide whether you want to grant the variance or not.
I want to add that all users of Crown Road will either have to sign the plat or a predial servitude agreement
If we grant the variance.
if you grant the variance,
That would have to be on this map.
or a separate document.
Okay. Well, and we've had that
Yeah.
come
Yes.
up numerous times before. All right, knowing all that and after the advice of our counsel, do we have a motion?
I'm going to move for approval, and with how would I say this, with the variance being approved? Is that simple enough?
Yeah.
We have a motion by Mr. Ori.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Opposition.
All right, Mr. Calendar votes in opposition. It's my understanding, because we do not have a unanimous vote, that I have to vote.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and do it by roll call vote.
All right, well, we'll go by roll call first. Mr. Bishop?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Calendar?
Oppose.
All right, the chair votes in favor of the motion. Basically, to not do it would be to unduly deprive these people of the right to use their land as they want to, and I don't think that's the spirit or intent of this law. So the chair votes in favor of the motion presented.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.
All right. Moving on to item 10, public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats. Number 10A is the major subdivision preliminary plat for Brookstone subdivision. We have Mr. Byriger.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Here, ask approval of Brookstone subdivision. Originally, staff recommended denial due to the drainage study. Late this evening, we did receive an email from the engineering department recommending approval of the drainage study under their new drainage impact provision. I'm not sure if y'all know about it. If y'all don't, I'll read it to y'all. But anyway, it is a kind of cut-down version of the old impact study, so they can kind of get through them, through the preliminary process. And during the construction phase of things, they'll really dull into these and make sure they meet the requirements. So as of right now, the letter says we meet the requirements of their new study, and they recommend approval now. And we do understand that there are some issues with a neighbor or two about 1,000 feet away, and we do understand there's some big concerns. And if we are fortunate enough to get approval, there will be some serious consideration of that area. And we just want to let y'all know we are aware of it. And will be some close consideration taken there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bowger. Staff comments? No staff comment?
I didn't hear you ask me to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There has been a change in the process. I explained to some of you guys a little bit earlier. A lot of times when we go through a drainage study, at the end when they start construction, there are changes due to the landscaping or just due to the layout that they didn't foresee to the drainage study that they see during construction. And so a lot of times I'm going to have to go back and re-review their drainage study. So what I've done is I've changed the process to where they basically put a stamp on it, show me their watershed, show me that they're going to meet the code and state that they're going to meet it, and then prove that during the construction phase. They've done that. I've looked at their study. There are calculations in here, but I didn't even look at them because I know they're going to change during the construction phase. I just gave them an approval stating that during construction you're going to have to prove that your hydraulics work. And that went out today at 5/11.
What's going to happen if they don't make their hydraulics work? How would we stop them?
We don't approve their construction plans.
So this is way before the shovel gets in the ground. This is still on construction plan approval. Okay, that
Right.
makes them different.
All right, we'll open a public hearing on this. Has anybody signed up to speak on this?
Yes. Aaron Lawler.
And the commission recognizes Mr. Lawler, one of our newly elected parish councilmen. And while I'm at it, we have several councilmen, Mr. Bill Dawson, Mr. John Cagnolati, Mr. Doc Satterley, I see in the audience. Hope I'm not missing anybody. Thank y'all for being here. And Mr. Lawler, thank y'all for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for welcoming me here. I've spoken with several of the constituents that live along Parker Road, and they have severe concerns about the drainage issues. There are already drainage problems in the back of their yards. Water drains up into it as it is without further construction behind them. And the concern is, absent a complete drainage study, and right now we've already said we don't know what's going to happen, and something could happen in the future, their houses could be flooded. And we can't accept this risk that their houses get flooded, reducing their property values. Once your house is flooded, your property value decreases. And that's something that is unacceptable right now, that we've got drainage impact studies that are not complete, that are partial in nature, yet we're allowing them. I mean, at this point, there's no good reason to push forward with this development if we don't know exactly what the watershed is going to do. And I understand that we can look at it again later on, but I don't recall ever there being a time where we've stopped a development, yet we still have drainage problems. Drainage problems have arisen after the developments. People's houses and streets are being flooded. It creates unsafe situations. When streets are flooded, it's harder to get in and out. It creates water reservoirs where right now we've got this Zika problem, this virus problem that could spread to this area, and not to alarm people, but if we're creating situations where there's an excess of water, and we've got that in subdivisions already, in Astro land, it's a huge problem. If water is going to sit and then we have mosquito problems, we're creating a public safety hazard, a serious public safety hazard, and that's unacceptable. It's a general health issue. We can't have that sort of situation arising. Moreover, I have spoken with literally thousands of people in District 7. And I've heard reports already that there hasn't been enough people from District 7 to come say that there's enough growth in the area. I can tell you that there's enough growth in the area. I've spoken with people. There's too much. It's a safety concern because the more roads, the more traffic we add to our roads, which we're doing right now, every new subdivision is more traffic on our roads, and these roads are not up to standard. They're dangerous, and we're adding more and more. I can tell you the people of District 7 have had enough. We can't have any more growth. It's affecting our roads. It's affecting our schools. That is a safety issue also. When you put children in temporary buildings, and recently we had them get under their desks because of a tornado warning, would you rather your child be in a permanent structure or in a temporary building during a tornado warning? And right now, every new subdivision that's added, every new child that comes in, those kids are going into temporary buildings. It's creating safety issues. The buses, more and more buses are on the roads. Too much time.
Yeah, if you're about to wrap up.
I'm about to wrap up.
Real quickly.
It is creating a safety issue that has to be taken care of. We can't have any more subdivisions. The people of District 7 have spoken. Everybody that ran for office in District 7 said the same thing. There's too much development. I'm asking you all to do something about it. You have the opportunity. You have the authority to do it. Please do something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Anybody else?
Paul Underwood.
Yes, Paul Underwood. I live on Parker Road, about the middle of the street, from one end to the other. When it's a 2 to 3 inch rain, the back of my lot floods now. And also the traffic, me trying to get out of my subdivision in the morning from 8 till 8:30, it's almost impossible for me to get out of my driveway. School, Parker Road there, it is so busy that I have to wait in my driveway to get out on Parker Road. 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon, the same thing. I can't get out of my driveway because it's backed up from one end to the other. And the main situation is the drainage on the back. There's a ditch back there that hasn't been cleaned in 10 years, and it's grown up in weeds, snakes, and everything else. And when this subdivision is completed, if it is, I will not be able to take all of the water from that in the back ditch of my lot. And I would urge not to approve this building. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next,
Doc Satterley.
Councilman Satterley. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm here tonight just to remind you guys that at the very last meeting in January 2016, right here, that in answering a question posed by Chairman Matt Pryor, your legal counsel, Cody Martin, stated, and I'm going to quote him, "As long as you cite the reasons why you're doing it," in this case meaning denying a subdivision approval proposal, general health, safety, and welfare, I think you would be okay. At another moment of time in that same meeting, legal counsel stated that the code says that you have to have an approved drainage and traffic study. Code, gentlemen. Now, tonight I've heard from staff that the process, at least, has changed on the drainage impact study. At 5:11 this afternoon, I would tender this to you. Was that sufficient time to allow the public to be notified of this process change so that they could be here to speak tonight? Are we going to continue to be making decisions here tonight? And I'm not accusing you of something you haven't done yet. And I'm also, again, I want to reiterate, I started this mess. I use that in quote, mess, back in August of discretionary authority, which we just also heard Councilman Aaron Lawler, newly elected in District 7, an attorney himself indicate you have the authority to do so, deny subdivision plots. But when I started this mess, I never told you back then, nor am I here tonight to tell you to turn this or any other subdivision proposal down. I am here one more time to try to tell you, because it's the last meeting for several of you, that you do, however, have that authority. And as I said in August, I don't envy you the task. I sat in your chair 5 years ago, and it's difficult. And yes, we want to be sure that we ensure that developers have the right to develop their land. We also need to, I think, pay the same respect to our land development code and the citizens when all the I's and all the T's have not been crossed. We're not even tonight, and the final thing, talking about master plan, whether we have one, whether it's outdated, whether it can be used, because I believe it is an ordinance and can be, and it's been used by our planning director as reasons to turn things down before, which you guys chose not to, because it's an ordinance. It is the appendix in our land development code, I believe, appendix 3, whatever. But there's no doubt that drainage and traffic impact are in there. Gentlemen, take care of business tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley.
Thank you.
Next.
Chris Charles.
Mr. Charles.
Bear with me, it's my first time doing public speaking, and I didn't get this letter until yesterday, so I prepared this at lunch. Speaking about the drainage, I live on Parker. All of those properties drain to the rear of the property. That ditch currently is around 30 inches wide and 6 inches deep. Most of our outlets for our water treatment systems are submerged or partially submerged, which they require to have lift pumps installed. We don't have that money. So it's not cleaned out, it doesn't flow. The other property flows into that also. They want to use that to drain all their property and ours. The last 6 months, 6 times I've had water half an inch from going over my slab. It doesn't work. Plus, all of that water, when it continues to the front of Parker Road, the main ditch, that pipe is maybe 18 inches in diameter, traveling 220 feet. The ditch in the front is also not deep enough. It's higher than the one in the rear. So when the one in the back fills up, when it gets to the front, it just levels out and it creates a bowl. And that's just current standards. It will get worse. We know that. And that's just a drainage. We can talk about this drainage. I can do this for hours because I've seen it there. I want to talk about having all of these cars come on the road. It says there's 86 lots, and it's only going to produce 56 cars at peak times. Does anybody here not have 2 cars at their house? Okay, so we can, that's 86 lots, that's 2 cars. It's almost 100 cars. 60% of married couples work. It's 2 cars. They're going to be going to work during peak times. So you're introducing, 100 cars on that roadway. How far is the distance from that intersection to where they want to come out onto that roadway? 1 minute. Okay. Roundabout plan for 939 in Parker. Y'all aware they're putting a roundabout there? It's a little over $2 million that state's paying for?
939.
Yes. Quoting, Department of Transportation Development for the roundabouts in 2009 studies then showed the intersection had the worst crash rating of any intersection in the parish. That's how you got $2 million or so to build that roundabout. Now, what are the current laws on having that exit when it's completed at that roundabout? Nobody's taking into account that. Schools, I can't leave my house. I'm across from the school. I don't have any children, but we have great schools, and that's fine. I pay for them. We're overloading our roads and schools to the detriment of happiness of our students and existing homeowners to make some more money. Most of our residents are tired of all the neighborhoods constantly being built. Why must we bear all of the negatives to someone from outside of our parish so he can make money? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Next.
Dawn Alamon.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak on behalf, and I'm actually one of the homeowners that's about 1,000 feet away from this new development. And I've been here before, and I've shown y'all pictures, but I'll let him see what I deal with every time it rains. And I've been here about 15 years, so I don't know how to get the projector to show the picture. Is there something I need to activate?
Yeah, it looks like it's on.
Okay. This, I don't know if it's going to come in close enough or not. Are you able to see that well? That is actually looking from my driveway back to where Parker is. So this is all just water from what you can see from the picture.
Ms. Alamo, do you front Parker?
That is actually from Abby James pushing back to Parker. So I'm kind of like I'm in the center. I'm in the middle of Abby James and Parker, and my road runs this way. So here would be Parker, here would be Abby James. And I'm about 4 acres off of Abby James.
Do
So
you
I'm
back up to Parker Estates?
not to, well, Parker Estates does touch me for about 6 or 7 houses. But yes, so we do share a property line. And then it's the drainage that runs all the way up to Parker. And so we're compromised now because of the fact that the drainage study isn't actually working that well for us. So we're getting the backwater. When it floods and everything's saturated, it backs up on me. And I own, as you said, with the 2 cars, I actually own 4 cars. I have a teenager and a college student. And they have cars. Me and my husband have trucks. We're the only ones that can get out of our house when it rains. My girls are stuck. And if they miss school, which is very expensive to go to LSU, we have no choice but to miss school. So it does put a big a burden on us. My road stays full of potholes now, which never did before. But this is, I don't know if you can, it's not really showing very well. I don't know how good of an image. But that's literally the front of my house. And that's my front yard. And that's the road underwater.
And you drain alongside of the ditch that goes alongside of Parker Estates, which would be across the back of this property, all the way to Parker Road?
All the way to Parker.
You drain all the way to Parker
and I
Road?
over my neighbor's property that's beside me as well. Yeah.
See if this will help.
How did you get that?
I'll work for this.
Okay.
Let me see. Move
Perfect.
that for you.
Because I was trying to do that today.
I was
It's kinda
trying to
bigger.
do this today. Let me see if you can see it. Oh, it might need to be blown up.
See, it's just that. Last time it showed it very well, but this time it's not.
Can you see that? I'm showing there's several developments in the area, and her house is right here. This is Parker Place 1, Shadows of Ascension, Brookstone, Parker Place 2. So I tried to do a little bit better job, but I was a proven drainage study. And then here are the pictures that they've submitted before. I think it might be the glare. Let me see. This is their shed.
And that is
This is from August 2014.
Yeah, they have one in here where when it rained the last time, we actually did take on 6 inches of water in our shop. We've had 6 inches and 4 inches so far.
So I'm gonna let you do it. That's your.
And so my house, of course, is a little higher, but the one, and this is, I guess, kind of facing the drainage of Parker Estates, and I'm through the woods this way.
How long have you lived there?
I've owned the property, and we've been out there. We've owned our property 15 years, and we've lived there for 13. We just completed 13 years
Have
that
you
the house
ever
was
had
built.
other than,
And I am not in a flood zone. I do not have to require I do not require flood insurance, although I do carry it. But now that my shop has flooded, I am going to have to pay in excess of $1,500 to $1,600 a year for property that I am not in a flood zone.
your shed flooded
My
2 years
shed-
ago, 2014?
It has flooded every year. It flooded twice last year and in 2014.
The first time
Yeah,
was in
the first time.
2014?
Yes.
Had
And
in the 13 or the 12
Never.
years prior to that, had you ever had any flooding problems
I have
with that?
never had, we've had, we've hold water and it drains very quickly, but nothing to where we are barricaded in our own home. I'm starting to have foundation problems. It's a 40 by 60 shop. Obviously, foundation doesn't come under your homeowners. It's a huge mess, and it's going to be a huge loss for us because that was a really expensive investment for us about 8 years ago. So my request is, I'm not here to stop anybody from building. I'm not stopping any developer. But I would like for us to be able to fix this problem, because there is a real problem. And it's not just me. My neighbor had 12 inches in their shop, because their shop is lower than I am. And they didn't get notice. There's no notice for us to get here, so we can't get organized and get here on time to fight for what's ours. But yet we're gonna lose everything if they keep winning and we keep permitting them. And I've worked my whole life for this. And I don't see where my rights are being protected, because there's a law that's supposed to protect me from having any extra duress, any extra expenses. No one's there. I get a call, and I make a call, and I ask if there's something to be done. And my exact words are, "It's not my problem." Okay.
From the parish
Then
drainage department?
not the parish, no, the parish has been very willing to help, but with the developer. And I see their point, because it's like, well, it's been done, everything's been, I've got the permits, I can do this, but our studies are either not working or they're not complete. There's a gap somewhere, and I just want us to find it, because I was born and raised here. My road is my last name. Do you think I want to sell that or lose that? No, that was my forever home, and that is threatened every time it rains, and my anxiety level goes way through the roof. And I just shouldn't have to live like that. And I'm just one person, and I understand that. But I know that it's affecting more people. And I would just love to see that we actually fix it, get it right, then move forward with the construction. I'm not trying to stop anybody from moving in here, because it's a wonderful place to live, you know. But if we tentatively do this and that, like the subdivision next to me, they already live in their home. We're not going to uproot them and make them go away. And, I mean, heck, they built 3-4 feet higher than the foundation of my house. So it's no wonder that I hold all that water. It's just the water's not moving fast enough for when it's collected, when the rain dumps on us. And I'm going to lose my value. And I feel like if I don't come here and fight.
Have y'all found that one of the solutions could be cleaning out the drainage servitude that runs all the way to Parker Road? Is it not big enough? Is it not adequate? Is it backwater?
Well, they call it a drainage ditch. I would be more inclined to say it's just a slope of dirt. I mean, it's really not. I was envisioning a canal that was going to move. That was 100 acres of wetlands, and now it's filled with a subdivision. What did we do with the water that was holding in that amount of that velocity of water? What did we actually do to fix that? You know, we didn't fix that problem. It's very apparent, because it doesn't even take a major rain, and we've got water.
And it's gotten worse and worse.
But I mean, I have a picture in here. That water is up to the mortar foundation, like the cement foundation where my first brick of my house started. That's how high it's gotten. And where I parked my cars underneath my garage, you stepped out the house and you were stepping in water. That's too scary. Like, that's way too close. It should never get that close to anybody living in this area. So I just making my appeal.
I'll let you have a little bit extra time because of the
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
fooling around with the thing. Anybody else to speak?
Keith Lorette.
Mr. Lorette?
Thank you. I live on Parker Road as well as a few of the other individuals. I have a concern about the drainage with that ditch that runs along the back. That's the northern border of the Brookstone property. That is the back area of my property. That I've been there 5 years, and that ditch has only been cleaned out one time, and I had to call in order to get it cleaned, and they only cleaned behind my house. So it's very much overgrown, and it doesn't flow very well. When there's a heavy rain, that water does rise, and it comes onto my property. When I stand in my backyard and I look at Brookstone, where the proposal is, it appears that that property is higher than mine. So they're on the plan, there's 2 ponds that they're going to dig and put. I want to know where the dirt's going to go. Are they going to build that property up? Because then that's going to make it higher than mine. So I'm just concerned about that ditch. Are they going to increase it, make it larger? It's going to run east to a ditch that runs up to the front to Parker Place into their pond. Where does that water go once it gets full? So those are some of the concerns I have there as far as drainage goes. Traffic is another one. In the morning, the traffic from the elementary school up the street backs up to my driveway. So, they stop on the street in order to drop off and pick up their kids in the morning and in the afternoon. I have a circle drive that I put in front of my home. I have to put a cone in it because when the traffic backs up, people use my circle drive to turn around because they don't want to wait in traffic. So there's also a proposed high school, there's a pasture across. That's a proposed high school that's going to be right across there. That's more traffic, not only there, but with this new subdivision. And then with the roundabout, that's just a lot of traffic. The road is 929. It just doesn't seem like it's designed, or Broad doesn't seem like it's adequate enough to handle all the traffic that's going to be put on it. I'm sure you're aware there was a fatality on Parker Road. A man was struck by a car. He rode up to vote in November, and then he was riding back, and he got struck. So there's a lot of traffic that travels on that road. And then when there's a school function, they park on the side of the road of the pasture in order to get to that function. They have to walk on the road. I'm just concerned about the drainage and the traffic that's going to be added to that area. Thank you.
Mr. Lorette, when you say what they could do with that drainage servitude and they just cleaned out the back of your ditch, when you talk about that, you're talking about the parish, or are you talking about the developers to see what they can do with that drainage servitude?
I call the parish when I see it overgrown. I keep my section up. I weed eat it. I make sure it's open so that it can drain. But as it runs towards 929, it seems to get shallower and shallower, right? And as it runs east towards Parker Place, it does get deeper. So I don't know how well it flows, but if you look up towards Borough Road, there are trees and weeds. I mean, it's really blocked up and back towards the west.
Now, it is supposed to carry west?
I'm sorry?
It is supposed to carry west?
It's supposed to drain east towards Parker Place. That's what
It's supposed to drain east towards
Yes,
Parker.
towards Parker Place, and then go up to the front ditch, and then continue east, and then dump into the pond in Parker Place. So that's what the survey talked about. I'm looking at item number 6 on their drainage survey. That's pre-development.
Yes.
It's going to dump into the ditch on the north of their development, run east to the ditch that runs from up to the front on Parker Road, and then continue east, and then dump into Parker Place Pond.
In their drainage study, it shows that ditch splits in the middle, and part of it goes east and part west.
Well, staff, could I ask the question? Right now, there's an existing 15-foot drainage servitude. Should we be showing a drainage servitude on the back of these lots on the proposed Brookstone development at this stage, or does that get shown in construction plans? That would, if they were required to put a 15-foot drainage servitude across the back of those lots, that would make a 30-foot drainage servitude that could potentially put in a bigger.
Right, and I think that historically we've stopped just automatically putting a rear lot drainage servitude in subdivisions because most of the time they end up being not needed, and we come back and revoke them anyway. In a situation where there's an existing ditch running along the perimeter of the property, I think it makes sense to explore the option of whether or not widening that to a bigger servitude to improve the capacity of the ditch, the flow of the water, particularly if this subdivision is going to be putting more water into that ditch, if that's the plan.
Absolutely, yeah. But we wouldn't know that without a complete and extensive drainage impact study, and it sounds like a drainage impact study for this area that was previously 100 acres may need a little bit more of a hard look, I would imagine. I mean, maybe a little bit more of an extensive look.
The previous study that was approved for Shadows of Ascension, there is an agreement that we're trying to work with the engineers right now because they know that there is a existing problem. Unfortunately, the bonds only last a year. At that point, what happens with it? But the engineers did come forward, and they're working with us. They've added some weirs. When Parker Place 2 went in, they designed some weirs because they initially thought that maybe it was just that the inlets were getting clogged. We've looked into it a little bit more. I don't believe that's the problem. I know Mickey Robinson was one of the engineers designing Shadows of Ascension, Parker Place 1 and Parker Place 2. GWS was the initial engineering firm that did the first Shadows of Ascension. So there's several studies that I know Mickey Robinson said he was going to speak with Derek and has already contacted him about trying to look at where there were some miscalculations, because I believe there were some miscalculations. And I did put that in my letter when I approved it. I have a whole paragraph stating that I would like Derek or the engineering firm to get with the other engineering firm and work on this to try to correct the problem. The point of a drainage study is they're required to say that they're going to put less water in each of those ditches and each of those locations than is going in there now. That's what their study says. That's their requirement. It's a study. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work exactly like that, but that's what they're supposed to design for.
Well, who's held accountable if their study doesn't match up? Because what ends up happening, or what it looks like from this hearing, is you have people whose homes are getting flooded because, oh well, our study didn't match up, and so if they're not accountable for it, we need to be a little bit more proactive on the front end to make sure that study is a legitimate study.
Right.
But we now own the servitudes. Those servitudes have since been dedicated to the parish. Sounds like we would be held accountable for that to make sure that it matches the pre to post, or to make sure that it's...
That's a servitude. That's, I mean...
A drainage servitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm asking that as a question, definitely not as a statement. I'm asking more as a question.
It's not that the swale hasn't been cleaned out.
It's more issues out there. Oh, I feel like I'd be in no hurry to move it forward until we can reconcile this, or make sure it gets a better look, or solutions.
I mean, it's
resolved.
not my belief that that's the problem.
How do we get a definitive, sure, somebody needs to make the call, it sounds like, eventually, as to what the problem is, because further than public opinion, facts and pictures show that there is indeed a problem that has been created as time has gone on.
We have pointed it out to at least one of the engineering firms. There are at least 7 or 8 different filings and plats that are involved with this. This is not one
You'd have to pull them all
situation.
together.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and so there are 3 different engineering firms now. I'm not sure how many developers. This isn't one person's problem. This is maybe one calculation that was done wrong, and every time another development was added in there, that was less, there was less available area to hold water. And so every new development made the issue a little worse, I believe.
Yeah, we're threading, we're walking a tight
So
line.
what's the new procedure? I mean, if we approve this tonight, hypothetically, how do we know that we're going to get this problem fixed and the drainage coming off this new development is not going to add to what appears to be an already existing problem?
You wouldn't know it even if they turned in a drainage study. It's a study. It's not definite. It's a study. It's saying that I'm going to calculate this, and based on those calculations, someone puts a stamp on it and says, this is the number that it's going to be. It's a calculation. And truthfully, by putting it in the construction phase instead of in the preliminary phase, we get something a little more accurate. I believe that's the reason I've changed the process, is because when they do a preliminary phase, they don't always go out there and do shoot elevations. They depend on LIDAR, which could be off. They sometimes will have to save a tree. They don't know about utilities. All of that changes during the construction phase. And so because of that, a drainage study that might have been this thick or thicker, it doesn't mean anything because they go back and make a bunch of changes. It makes more sense for that to happen during the construction phase. There's still not a shovel on the ground until the construction plans are approved.
Rhonda, the changes that you're proposing, that has to go in the form of, is it to the policy or is it to the ordinance that you're proposing these changes to?
Neither.
Neither.
It's the method that we approve them. They're consistent with the ordinance. They're consistent with the policy.
With the ordinance that's in place now, it's consistent?
Yes, I'm trying to make some changes to the ordinance. I've been working to try to clean them up, and actually during the staff report, you're going to see making the first step towards a cleanup. And then I've asked managers to help me to get a RFQ together to get some other engineering firms in to help us clean up our ordinances to make sure they're consistent and accurate, and we don't have to get the lawyers involved when there's a question of what does this mean. Until then, we have to depend on what's in there. But how we review is not in an ordinance. Our policy that's not in an ordinance. It's
But
not a law.
don't we have to have an approved drainage study before we approve a preliminary
Yeah, but nothing says what a approved drainage study is. It could be a piece of paper that says drainage study. I mean, there's nothing that says what that study has to be.
You want me to read you guys the ordinance in place on it?
Yeah.
So y'all can make the determination?
I'll take it.
Okay. It's,
Well, before you do that, let me just find out, do we have any more people to speak on the public hearing?
Good.
All right, Cody, I'm going to put you on hold for just
Sure,
a second and let the other people that have signed up to speak
Thank you, gentlemen.
come up and speak. Thank you very much, sir.
Dwayne Vargo.
Good evening. Thanks for getting me in at the last minute. I also live on Lot 12C on Parker Road. Been there 6 years. And I'm actually one of the higher lots on Parker Road. And even my back servitude, once again, the same one that has not been serviced in a long time, on a good rains, multiple times, that water is getting right to the bottom of my septic output. And I'm actually on one of the higher lots on that. Yes, Bro Road is literally falling apart. I drive on that every day. So yes, traffic, our roads is a concern. Safety is a concern with the fatality just a couple months back. And people having to park on there. But the main concern I would be really taking into consideration throughout this process is there's no better drainage study than rubber boots in our backyard. And you've heard that multiple times tonight. So with a good conscience, this process already has been kind of misrepresented to us. The letter we were informed in the mail said this subdivision would be 2,000 feet south of Parker Road. The back of my lot is only 200 feet.
It's only 200 feet.
Off Parker Road, so that was misrepresented. Shows to be District 7. We actually vote in District 10, so I don't know how that works. But as far as the drainage study goes, like she said, forget the legality part of it. You have a big problem. You have Shadows Ascension, it's already a big problem. You have Abbey Road behind us that already has problems. On top of me being one of the highest lots on that road and already seeing potential problems with that ditch not handling it. You add 40 more homes dumping into that ditch. There's an issue on top of the fact that that's all just pasture land right now. Pasture absorbs a lot better than a bunch of concrete and yards that are well manicured. So with a good conscience, like the gentleman already stated tonight, you have the ability to say yes or no. You're the ones that have to lay your head on your pillow when our property and investments that we have worked very hard for now become jeopardized unless that developer is going to put a bond saying he's going to protect our investments that's already there, and that would provide him a clean conscience, other than just providing a paycheck. So that is my request to you, is that rather than moving forward with an obviously flawed system of drainage studies, ran across this when 621 and 73 came together. You had a gentleman that lives right there in the corner, a good friend of mine. The drainage study said that the water would flow north. For 30 years, he sat there and watched that water flow south and argued with the people that were doing the drainage study. And in the first good rainstorm, that water flowed south, and they had to come and redesign that drainage study there. So forget black and white papers. You have multiple voices. That's becoming a democracy here, and we're all pro Ascension Parish. We love Ascension Parish.
Thank you, sir.
But it needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody else? Gentleman back. Did you sign a card, sir? No. Come forward. You need to sign a card though if you want to speak.
My name's Brandon. I'm actually one of the landowners. And I hear what they're saying, and I'm a little nervous. So
No, it's fine. Take your time, sir. Understand.
I hear what they're saying about the drainage, and I'm just under the assumption all that's going to be figured out. But I also hear what they're saying about District 7 saying that they don't want no more growth. I mean, are we going to, if they come here and say District 8 doesn't want any, are we going to listen to that too just because we're going to stop are we going to stop development because somebody just doesn't want it? That's pretty much what I want to say.
Yeah.
You know, that's about it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you, Brandon.
All right. Any further else? Anybody else? All right. This time we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this issue. Mr. Beauregard, did you want to say anything in response to everything?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear it?
Just to let y'all know, quality engineer did do a complete and comprehensive drainage study. I mean, I can read email after email after email begging to find out if this has been reviewed or not. And we, tonight there was a comment saying that we changed the policy was changed tonight at 5:11. We was notified on the 28th that the policy was changed, that it was going to be done during construction plans. So this wasn't changed tonight, and it's nothing we did. We didn't turn in a piece of paper that said drainage study. We did a complete comprehensive drainage study. We did our work, and I don't want y'all to think we didn't do our work. We do know there are some issues. Ms. Bro is correct. Sometimes a lot of times, not sometimes, when you actually get on the ground and you actually do a complete topo of the site and you are actually in design mode, some of your drainage does change and you have to resubmit. So she is absolutely correct. This drainage study more than likely will change. A lot of times we find issues and problems that we didn't see in the original drainage study. So she is absolutely correct. And that may be where we find the issue. We haven't found the issue yet. And I'm telling you, we haven't found it.
Well, let me ask you
This may be the way to find it.
If there's a problem with one of the neighboring subdivisions that's being constructed right now, that their drainage study was wrong for one reason or another, and there's flooding that's occurring after construction, if the data that you're using for your drainage study is based in part on that drainage study, then doesn't it kind of invalidate the drainage because you're based on bad data coming in because the first drainage study was wrong?
Possibly.
Yes.
And I think that's some of the concerns that I have because the whole reason that we have these drainage studies and traffic impact and all that is to make sure that there's no more water going off these the developed property post-development than there was pre-development, so that the people who live around there and stuff won't flood. And it just seems like I'm not sure where the reconciliation is, but if you submit a drainage study, it's like, well, we're going to change it. We know it's going to change. I mean, it makes sense to have that come in later or have some more stricter standards coming from the parish saying this is what we require for it to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because I'm not a drainage expert. I couldn't tell you the first thing about why things flood and they don't flood or whatnot. I'm just reviewing what the experts tell us, and that's what we have to go on. That's what's required by the code. Cody, did you want to enlighten us on the
Sure. I just wanted to read to you guys what the standard is in the code. It's under section 17405, which is entitled Preliminary Plat Procedure. And then section I, it states, the Department of Public Works and the Engineer Review Agency shall require a subdivider to provide a drainage impact study and a traffic impact study for a proposed preliminary plan, and to require a conclusion and a plan that offsets any adverse impact that the development may have on the drainage system or the roads traffic of the Parish of Ascension. The Engineer Review Agency and the Department of Public Works must agree or disagree with the findings of the engineer or subdivider or person that submits the drainage plan and or traffic study, and any discrepancies between the findings of the engineer, subdivider, or person who submits the discrepancies between the findings of the agency and the Department of Public Works will be decided in favor of the Engineer Review Agency and the Department of Public Works at its discretion. The Department of Public Works and Engineer Review Agency may waive the requirement for a drainage impact study and or a traffic impact study at its discretion.
That's definitely not the direction I would want to go, waiving the drainage impact study.
I don't think that's a good idea at all. All right. Mr. Bagger, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have any,
No, that's fine.
Do you have anything else you want to
Mr. Berger, it's a tough spot. I mean, there's nothing that I could say here that could even ask you to even promise to put a 15-foot servitude on your side of the property, because that's not even guaranteed to fix the situation for the lots that face Parker Road. To go along that 15-foot servitude that runs alongside of Parker Place, I mean, I don't even know if that would even be the fix. I mean, what kind of ditch runs there right now? When you do a drainage impact study, you pretty much are analyzing the entire watershed for that whole region.
Correct.
You find where that outfall is. You find the capacity of what goes to that outfall.
Can I
I'm
say
confident-
something?
Yeah.
In my letter that went out today, if you don't mind, I'll read a recommendation I made to them regarding the flooding issues. Can I read it?
Please do.
I said, as we have discussed, and we did discuss in their their pre-application process, we let them know early on, hey, there's flooding issues here. Y'all need to get involved and see what's going on. I said, as we have discussed, there are currently ongoing flooding issues related to the development in this area. Mr. and Mrs. Alamon, who reside at 16339 Alamon Lane in Prairieville, have submitted photographs of flooding in their shed and within inches of their home in August 2014 and on other occasions in response to heavy rainfall and possibly due to backwater flow from the pond that drains Shadows of Ascension 1 through 7 filings and Parker Place 1 through 2 filings. Since your drain design outfalls into this system, we suggest that you utilize due diligence when modeling this development to ensure that your design does not exacerbate this current issue and cause undue difficulties in neighboring properties. We understand that Mr. Mickey Robinson of MR Engineering has been in contact with you and has offered to share the studies completed for these subdivisions. We suggest that you accept this offer and collaborate with him in an effort to remedy the design, since it would be in the best interest of all parties. That was part of the letter of their approval.
Rhonda, do you know where the outfall for this entire, I'm just going to call it a square, where the square goes? Doesn't it go underneath Parker Road?
There's 5 different outfalls.
So there are 5 different outfalls. So let's just, for sake of conversation, I think someone said this was a 100-acre spread at one point.
Are you talking about this Brookstone, or you're talking about the entire?
The entire watershed.
Oh.
That entire watershed goes to one place.
Yeah, I'm sure I could find that. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me see. Here. It's showing 1 to Black Bayou, and Parker Place goes to, southeast. So this subdivision has 2 different outfalls. But the entire watershed, most of it goes to the southeast. I would have to look at the others.
Any further comments or questions by commissioners?
No, this is a tough one. I mean, this is.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to deny.
I second the motion. Mr. Calendar moves to deny the approval of the major subdivision preliminary plat, seconded by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll oppose that motion.
All right.
Can I ask why?
Another 3-to-1,
Sorry, Matt.
2-to-1 vote.
And I'm going to request too that you guys state on the record the reason for denial.
Okay. Well, we'll go roll call, and I'll ask each member to do that while they're in the roll call vote. We'll start over on the other side with Mr. Calendar.
I oppose it because I'm not so certain that the proposal as it's made will not exacerbate the conditions that exist at this point. That being said, that's a safety issue for myself.
Mr. Ori?
I'm going to side with the development because I do feel like these issues can be worked out as construction plans go and as more data is collected. But me going with it also hopes that the other situations and miscalculations can be rectified. And that's I'm still gonna go with.
Mr. Bishop?
I voted to deny it because of the health, safety, and welfare issue. I do think this is a heavily congested area that's obviously having many flooding problems now. And I think that obviously the studies for the previous subdivisions have not been absolutely correct because there are flooding problems, and I don't want to exacerbate the flooding problem either.
All right, I think this is a very difficult decision to make because what we have here is competing rights as towards the use of private property. On the one hand, we have a developer who has a financial interest in developing this land and in putting it into commerce, which is something that's been done by a lot of developers in our parish over the years. It's not illegal. In fact, it's one of the principles of the American way of life, of making money off of your property. On the other hand, we have people who are already in existence, who have their home and have as much right in that property as anybody else, or as anybody else does in their own property, who are facing flooding issues, which likely seem to be because of development that has taken place there, where where this flooding, the drainage studies were wrong and miscalculated. And the drainage studies are there for a purpose. The traffic impact studies are there for a purpose to protect the people who live there from having the adverse effects of development come on their property so that they can enjoy their property to the fullest extent. My personal opinion is that property rights are something to be cherished, valued, and protected, and government should not get in the way of somebody using their property as they want to. But at the same time, our laws are designed specifically so that you can't use your property or any other part of your person or your things to hurt or damage somebody else. And I think that what we have is this is going on here. And so I'm going to reluctantly vote to deny this major subdivision preliminary plat until these drainage issues can get worked out and submitted back to the planning commission or to the engineering staff to rectify these problems so that the people who are there, who have a vested interest in their homes and in the personal property that they've developed and where they want to live, can enjoy that and not worry about what an increased amount of water flowing off that property will do. And so I'm going to vote to deny as well.
Okay. Can't disagree with you. That was tough.
All right, moving on to item 10B, Silver Oaks PUD revision of the final development plan. Somebody here to speak on that?
Good evening. I'm Joe Labe with Quality, and I'm here tonight to ask for your approval for the revised and previously approved final development plan for Silver Oaks. And I would like to note that it is not included on the plan that the developer has agreed with the adjacent property owner to the east along the backside of the lots to provide a fence along the backside of those lots. Just wanted to note that. But
The lots in the pond or just the lots? I remember that guy coming for that piece
on
of
the
property.
east, along the east side of the property line.
Yeah, down by that big pond. So just on the lots?
Yeah, along the length of that property line.
Y'all, you had some other things that I think y'all were adding too. Weren't y'all putting like a turn lane, I want to say, airline in Germany? Was that part of this development?
As far as the changes from the original that was approved, the layout has remained the same. We're looking at, basically in the multifamily, we're looking at adding 56 units. We previously already had 3 stories, but they weren't full 3 stories, so you're looking at 4 units per building, which totals at 56. We're looking at, previously there was a pedestrian connection between the multifamily and single family.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that is no longer. And due to that, the idea was to provide the amenities for the single family, to make use of the pool area within the multifamily. And with that change, now we're providing that same amenity within the single-family subdivision with the pool area and pavilion and restroom.
So they get their own pool?
Correct.
How about the turn lane situation? I think when we did the would this have been a preliminary plat approval, being a PUD? Or was it part of the developer's agreement, maybe?
It was part of the approved final development plan, and it's part of the developer's agreement.
Is that still in place? That
Yes.
I think that's what we had approved for.
That's correct.
So you have an entrance coming off of Airline still one on Germany. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's.
Do we have any staff comments on this?
No, we met with the developer on this project, and I don't want to, throw too much out there, but there were some financing issues when you join a single-family project to a multifamily project. And so in discussing what our options were, the decision was to eliminate the single-family connection to the multifamily, but in joining or adding those amenities to the single-family part of the project so that they get that same benefit, which is why we were supportive of this thing in the first place. We think that the addition of the units is negligible in the sense that this project is doing everything we felt responsible, or it should have been responsible for with regards to the traffic. It was building a right turn lane from Germany on the Airline Highway. I think there's maybe even a turn lane off of Germany into the project. So the addition of the units was negligible to what the impact was to the traffic.
Do we have we'll open a public hearing on this. Do we have anybody signed up to speak on this? All right, nobody signed up to speak. We'll close the public. Oh,
we do?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Come forward, sir.
For the Silver Oaks. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Good evening. My name is C.J. Barwa. I'm the adjacent property owner to the east. My wife and I, that Mr. Ingram was going to put the fence up. My question and concerns are first and primarily drainage. The plans that I've seen call for a 15-foot drainage servitude to run the length of my property, in addition to a 1-acre pond that is going to be placed on my property line that does not exist now. I asked the question of, are we talking a swale or what are we talking about? And Mr. Ingram was kind enough to point out that he has no control over what type of drainage he puts in, that it's strictly what the parish tells him. So I would respectfully request that the parish has an opportunity to do the right thing and put in some subsurface drainage to alleviate any potential flooding along my property line that would flood towards me. Next thing I have from some safety concerns, and with regard to the quality engineering studies that you people rely so heavily on. Quality engineering did the road widening for Germany Oaks. That road widens just before you get to our property and our driveway. It has created several safety concerns and drainage concerns. First being, there's no longer a shoulder on the road. It's a straight drop into the ditch. The ditch, the drainage ditch, is cut in half. It's half the size it used to be. You're creating an additional flooding problem for us. The mailboxes, safety concern. Mailboxes used to be set back off the road. Now, they are set directly on the highway. My driveway that was broken up was supposed to be replaced in like kind. That was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago. Never has happened. I can't get Quality to call me back. Then we get into a simple question for the parish, maybe if we could, or Mr. Ingram could answer. When we're talking about no pedestrian access between the apartment complex and the residential, there's energy power lines that run through the property. Have we gotten permission to put a fence along that power line right-of-way? I mean, I've thought in the past the utility companies generally frowned upon you putting a permanent fence on their right-of-way. So I'd like to know how we address that, and then
if we can't put a fence there, how does that meet the requirement to fence off the complex from the subdivision? Obviously, I have some concerns about the apartment complex flowing our way. The size, I'm not surprised. Original development, of course it increases. 56 more units, 7 parking spots. Don't know how that math works.
Is that where it was, 56 more?
Yes, 56 more and 7 parking spots.
Thank you, sir.
So, in closing, respectfully, my main concern is drainage, and I'd request that y'all have Mr. Ingram put the right type of drainage in.
How do you feel that that subsurface, let's just say that they have a 15-foot servitude and they get to utilize that 15-foot servitude, putting subsurface in would make a difference into getting you better drainage?
Well, I think for starters, I think when you put a swale or a ditch in, it's exactly what we're talking about. I'm going to have 17 houses, 17 backyards along my property line.
Basically, yeah.
So you have to concern about who's going to keep it up. Nobody's going to keep these ditches up. It's going to be a draw for rodents. It's going to be a draw for snakes, mosquitoes. If the ditch isn't maintained, it's going to create flooding problems. It's just what we heard earlier tonight. These swales and drainage ditches are not maintained.
Just to logically talk and walk through it, if they were to put some subsurface drainage on these back lots, I mean, it might not be to your benefit. They would still have to have a swale ditch to get to these drain inlets. So you would still have that 15-foot servitude that could still get overgrown. It would only get to those drain inlets with swale ditches to get to them. So it could still have the same problem. It would just be a little bit more shallow, if that makes sense. I'm not going to act like I'm any kind of drainage expert, but I'm just
I'd refer to the drainage experts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we might have to let them work that out.
I have a friend that's a contractor and a developer,
and they feel like that would be better.
And I can tell you, he has done developments, and
he feels like
absolutely.
Okay, he felt
in
like
his
that was
professional
a good request
opinion.
for you to make. Okay.
In his professional opinion,
and that's
that
your right
would
to
be
request that. You know,
the better way to go.
I don't think we could stipulate that they. I'm pretty positive that we can't specify that they, you know, their means and methods of how they're going to install it. But
well,
they
that's
do have to.
That's what Mr. Ingram told me at the start of this meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm relying on him on that one.
They just do have.
So,
they are required to meet pre to post, whatever that pre-post water, that pre-watershed is running off that piece of property. It has to be met after the development's done. That's the one thing that we can ensure with the drainage impact study. So,
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else signed up to speak for this? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Staff comments? No staff comments.
I just wanted to answer one of his questions, if it was all right. He had brought up the parking as a concern, and that I can see where that would look a little strange.
Yeah.
But we did have 81 additional parking spots to begin with, so adding the additional units, we only needed the additional 7 more.
So y'all added 56 additional units into what they had when we looked at it before, back in February of 2015.
That's correct.
How many units did we have? We had 280 before. Now we're adding.
We had 280 before. That's correct. And now we have 330.
And staff, y'all feel like, as far as traffic is concerned, that's not going to make, it's going to be such a negligible difference with the additional cars, with the improvements being made at Germany, the turn lanes being put in on the piece of property, and the access to Airline Highway?
Just to play devil's advocate,
Yes.
what else would we expect this developer to do? He's not going to add
Right.
a lane to Airline Highway.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
He's putting a turn lane in from Germany onto Airline Highway. He's
right. Come back up.
Sir, if you want to ask that question, you can come back up to the microphone so we can be on the record.
Yes.
Quickly, please.
If I may, my question was, and I didn't mean to shout from the back, but we just widened the road in front of my house, and there was no consideration for any type of shoulder. There's no consideration for the existing drainage ditch. You widen the road and may have solved part of a traffic problem, but you have created a safety issue and a drainage issue. And I just like assurance that when we widen Germany Road again,
At the turn.
and it's Mr. Ingram's, the developer that's doing it, that there is consideration from the parish to make sure that these issues are addressed. I think we're remiss in, we fail, you know, we may see the big picture, but we fail to look at the details.
Execution.
Absolutely,
I mean-
and it's just creating other issues.
We have to approve that turn lane before they build it. I mean, we have to approve that the geometrics of the turn lane and that the drainage ditches are adequate before we actually approve and tell them, yes, we're gonna allow you to build this. I mean, I'm hoping that that stuff got looked at through, we have to trust the staff and that the inspection department looked through that and watched that it was built correctly.
Well, I can tell you.
It's not all on the developer is what I'm trying
No,
to say.
and
We
I
have to-
understand that.
Right.
I understand that. That's why I'm challenging the parish
Good.
to do this, because it was not done, and now I'm stuck with the mess.
Okay, and that is, you're right, and I hope you can reconcile this and your driveway and everything else, because it is well within your rights to be the loud voice on this. You're the only one that's gonna be the voice on this.
That would be me.
You mentioned before the shoulder does it match what was there before, or are you saying
No,
it
does
doesn't?
not. It does not.
Okay.
The road is here, and the ditch drops instantly off.
Okay, and that's
If your wheel goes off the road, you're in the ditch. And before, the swale used to gradually slope. Now it's straight down, and the existing drainage ditch is half the size of what it used to be.
okay. We'll check to see, if it matches the slope is adequate, from what it was before. There should have been a submittal on it, and I haven't been to the site to see, but I will check that out, and you're welcome to call me, and we can go, check it together. You mentioned the mailboxes too, to make sure that that's in a safe manner, matching what was there before, or to be within standards, to where the mail carrier, can do that safely. We can ensure that part gets done.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's how you do it. I mean, unfortunately, it cost you your time to come here and make sure you fight for what you feel was not done correctly, but, I mean, I'm hoping you can work with Mr. Turo and get that reconciled.
Okay. All right.
Anything else from commissioners? We have a motion.
I'm gonna move for approval. I mean, as seen now.
Move for approval by Mr. Ori. We have a second.
I second the motion.
Second by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. The motion to approve the preliminary plat of Silver Oaks PUD passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 11 on the agenda, it looks like all items under item 11 have been removed. Is that correct? So we'll move on to number 12. Is that still on the agenda, number 12?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance, number 12, ordinance is a public hearing to recommend the approval or denial to the Parish Council of amendments to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, 12A, ordinance SR 16-1, revision to the subdivision regulations in the Unified Land Development Code pertaining to cul-de-sac and T turnaround requirements. Mr. Conley.
So a couple meetings ago, we had spirited discussion about cul-de-sacs and T turnarounds and what constituted a dead-end street. And so what we have before you is a proposal to revise Section 17-4020E5 to read, a cul-de-sac is described in Section 17-4100, or a T turnaround as provided for in Section 17-4032L, shall be required at the end of all dead-end streets within public right-of-ways or private servitudes of access. Section 17-4032L reads, T turnaround or L turnaround pavement shall be a minimum of 90 feet by 20 feet with a 25-foot radii and within a 110-foot by 40-foot public right-of-way or 90-foot by 30-foot private servitude of access. And then in the definition section, 17-4100, dead-end street is defined as any street or portion of a street that is open for vehicular traffic at one end only.
And this is to get around the discussion we had not too long ago about what constitutes a dead-end street.
It becomes black or white.
Yeah.
All right, do we have, we'll open a public hearing on this. Do we have anybody signed up to speak on this matter? We will close the public hearing on this. Commissioners, any comments? Can I have a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, move to approve recommendation to the Parish Council of the amendments to the ordinance by Mr. Callender.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Ori. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. The motion passes. Moving on to 12B, ordinance SR 16-2, revision to the subdivision regulations in the Unified Land Development Code, section 17-405.1, preliminary plat procedure, section 17-408, procedure for construction, and section 17-409, construction. Mr. Compton.
I would like to request that we postpone this until a later date, until we've had more time to work out the details relevant to impact fees and how those would affect this ordinance. So when we start hearing those grumblings again, these will start showing back up on your agenda. So,
All right. So we have do we have a motion to table this matter for the time being?
I'll move for.
Moved by Mr. Ori, second.
Second.
By Mr. Callender. All in favor?
Aye.
All approved? All approved. No opposition. Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to item number 13 on the agenda, staff report. Ms. Rhonda.
Okay, engineering staff report is currently we have 5 subdivisions in bond, 15 subdivisions in infrastructure, 1 private. I think it's also in infrastructure, it's not inspected. We have 8 subdivisions currently under review. The construction plans are under review, 10 that are currently in preliminary review. In other words, their drainage has not been approved yet, or their traffic drainage. And another 5 subdivisions that we have not had submittals. We've just had preliminary applications on. So that's currently how many we have. And then we have 38 commercial sites that are currently at some form of infrastructure. One other item I wanted to bring up, turned into you guys, I meant to do last week, was we've had a lot of talk about drainage. There's some things in our regulation that are not clear. I wanted to make one small change in our current regulations in 17-5013. One portion of it talks about policy, that the drainage impact study shall be done in accordance with the drainage impact study policy. And apparently legally policy can't dictate an ordinance has to dictate policy. So I just wanted to change where it says, hey, follow the policy, and take summarize what the policy says and put it into a paragraph and make it an ordinance.
You want a public hearing on that?
So I'm asking for a public hearing regarding that
Do we
change.
have a motion to set this for a public hearing at our next meeting?
I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bishop,
Second.
by Mr. Ori. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Anything more from engineering staff or the staff?
No, I'm done.
All right. And then the final thing would be a motion to adjourn. Before we adjourn, I would like to note that there will be no zoning committee meeting tonight, but immediately following this, after a short recess, we will have a joint planning and zoning meeting as per the agenda. So that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn the planning meeting?
Move for adjournment.
All right, we are adjourned, and we will take a few minutes to recess before coming back for a joint planning and zoning meeting.